Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James. Channel brings you your team every single day. We're going to talk a little bit of Champions League, what Phillipe Clement has been talking about as regards the Champions League, and give our views, opinions on that. We're going to talk about Sam Lammers and how he played today for Rangers B team against Leeds B team in a defeat to Leeds at Auchenhowie. We're also going to talk a little bit about Glen Kamara as well, and how Glen Kamara, even though he hasn't been a Rangers player for a season and a bit now, has still benefited Rangers after he left Leeds for Rennes in France. Well, let's start obviously with the most obvious topic, which is the Champions League. And we'll talk about what our manager, Phillipe Clement, has been saying as regards the Champions League. Now, I think we all realise that the Champions League is exceptionally important for Rangers. It's exceptionally important that as a club, we qualify for the Champions League. Why? Because of obviously the amount of money that is available. Add into that, of course, as well, the situation where, our neighbours across our city have already qualified for that because, let's face it, they were champions last season, whether we like it or not. So therefore, they automatically get entry to this season's new Champions League format. 32 teams all play off against each other. Top 8 go through. Then I think it's 9 to 16 or 9 to 24 play off against each other for the right. It's all very complicated. Anyway, let's forget about that for a minute. Now, the first Champions League third qualifying round is on the first leg will be played on either the 6th or the 7th of August, with the second leg being played on the 13th of August. So we are obviously fast approaching these Champions League qualifiers. Adding to that as well, the fact that teams who are entering these qualifiers will need to name their squad. So Phil Clement will need to name his squad for those qualifiers. Now, at the moment, we know the situation at the club. We know that we can't buy players because we haven't got the money. As Clement has said, until we sell, there will be no buying, which obviously is, a slightly worrying, considering that, the Champions League is fast approaching, as I've said, and the fact that a squad will have to be confirmed for that, as I've said, is slightly concerning. Now, the Saudi transfer window has obviously opened today, so I suppose we're all hoping that the Saudis may come in and perhaps take 1 or 2 or even 3 of our players off our hands for some substantial fees so that we can then reinvest those fees in our club. I think that's obviously what Big Phil will be hoping for. I think we're all kind of hoping that there's 1 or 2 names in particular that stand out as potential targets for the Saudis. Now, Phillipe Clement has spoken about these Champions League qualifiers, and he's spoken about getting into the Champions League. He said that, in his opinion, that we need to add more quality to the squad. We need to add extra bodies and extra quality to be successful. When he was talking about competing with Europe's top clubs, who many of which he said have a far substantial bigger budget than we do. So it's not comparing like with like. He says, I always believe that with your squad, you can succeed because otherwise you cannot get results against Real Madrid with a team like Bruges, which he did. He went to the Santiago Bernabeu with Club Bruges and got a draw. He went to the San Siro as well and got a victory. I think that was with Genk. So, he has got a track record of getting teams with, far, inferior budgets and far inferior players to, those European giants to get decent results against some of them. He says, but if you don't believe it's possible, it will never happen. So it's about mindset of the players. They must believe in themselves and be hungry to become better, because it's not only about quality, it's about work rate, it's about mentality, and it's about what you do every single day. And I think Big Phil is absolutely spot on with these comments. You can buy the 11 best players in world football, but if they haven't got the right attitude, they haven't got a desire to play for the jersey, they haven't got a desire to succeed, you're not going to get as much out of them perhaps as 11 players who've got less talent than them. If they all want to fight, they all want to push, they all want to go for it, they all want to, really lay their bodies on the line for their side. Big Phil went on to say, I've seen players that are now better than they were 6 months ago. We've been working hard for that kind of mindset in all the players who have come in. We want them all to be ambitious, to become better. And with all the staff together, we can give them the tools to become better. So in that way, I believe that with whatever squad we have at the moment, we'll have the ability to qualify. But everybody needs to be at their top. And the more quality you have, the better is your chance. Now, he's got to say this at the end of the day. He can't come out and say, look, we've got no chance. This squad aren't good enough. The squad, they're going to get hammered. They haven't got the ability to compete with these top teams. It's just not possible because, that's sending completely the wrong message to A, the fans, B, the players, and C, a manager doesn't throw his players under the bus like that. He may be thinking that at the back of his mind, that perhaps this squad isn't good enough to compete with the likes of Fenerbahce, Dinamo Kiev, Union Saint-Gilloise, etc., etc. They obviously teams with, have made signings this summer already that are, acquiring new players that have, and a substantial amount more budget than we do to go out and buy players, particularly obviously Fenerbahce under Jose Mourinho. Now, Clement went on to talk a little bit further, and he said this. He said, it is for sure not easy because you need to qualify against teams with a much bigger budget. That's the reality. We did it a few years ago with Bruges. The advantage then at the moment was that you had your core of your team already a few years together. We are building that now. You need to build a core for the next couple of years. And that's why players like Mohamed Diamande were really important to bring in January. We see him grow in the months after that. And again, we're busy with doing that, and we're going to throw ourselves full to qualify because everything is possible. Of course, you're not going to be favourites in these qualifying games against teams with bigger budgets and maybe teams who play a long time together. And that's the interesting thing, to have this challenge. You want to be in that position. It's amazing to be a Rangers player and have these challenges. Better to play those things than to be a team where you don't have these challenges and you only have the league and the cup. Everyone wants to go to the Champions League. Me also. I have been there several times and it's a nice world. He went on to say, when I managed Bruges, we drew against Madrid, against PSG. We won in Leipzig, against Zenit. A lot of very good memories. So, it's quite clear that, Clement has that experience. He has that pedigree in Europe. He has the ability to compete in Europe. And, like he said, he's taken teams like Genk, like Bruges, obviously very probably unfancy teams, up against top teams like PSG, like Zenit, like Real Madrid, and got results against them. And that's got to be put us in a hopeful state of mind. Phillipe is right. He talks about the fact that, this squad is trying to develop. He's trying to bring this squad on. He's trying to develop this squad. But he's right as well from the aspect that, number one, we do need more quality to compete in the Champions League, to actually put up a good fight and to, make a good showing of it. At the end of the day, Celtic have been absolutely embarrassed in the Champions League over the past couple of seasons with players that, on the whole, probably are better players than what we've got. They've won the league after all. Over us, the likes of Matt O'Reilly, Callum McGregor, Rio Tate, etc., etc. So look, we do need to add quality. We do need to add more to this squad to compete. But like we know, until the money becomes available, it is not possible. Big Phil also spoke about the fact that those squads that he'd had at Genk and Bruges had been together for a whole lot longer time than this Rangers squad. Yes, there are players there that have played a long time for this squad, the Goldsons, the Taverniers, but we've also added new players into this squad who've not been there as long, have not perhaps forged an identity or forged a kind of a bonding or a group with the players we already have on the squad. So, look, he's right. It is going to be tough. It is exceptionally tough. And I think, we've got to kind of remember that the Champions League is kind of really central to the future of this club, in terms of building a team, in terms of building a budget capable of, building a squad. Champions League, enables you to tap into untold millions, far more than the Europa League, far more than the Conference League. So at the end of the day, this is something we do need to qualify for. And it is becoming increasingly concerning for me that we are on countdown towards the 6th or 7th of August, that first tie. Obviously, the squad will have to be named before that. And we have not got the funds in place to add to this squad. Now, look, I'm not saying for a minute I expect the board to go out and suddenly find a bank, get a bank loan or get a massive loan from someone and spend masses of fortunes and overbloat the squad and the budget. I know that we have to sell to buy it, or at least create squad room by selling players. But at the end of the day, this is a crucial part of the season for Rangers. Launching the season in a successful way is vital. Not falling behind them in the beginning is very important indeed. But not only that in the slightest, it's also for me very much about, getting that money into the club, and that money will help us to compete, help us to build a big budget, to be able to really embed this transfer model and embed this trading model so that we can go on to be competitive for a long time to come. Okay, so let's move it along. We're going to talk a little bit now about Mr. Sam Lammers. Now, Sam Lammers was a very strange character last season, wasn't he? I mean, he started pre-season. He was very good in pre-season and had a lot of us, very convinced that he was a very good signing, that he would go on to become a very good player. That, there was even some people comparing him to Brian Laudrup, a sort of a B-Tech Brian Laudrup. But obviously, Lammers fell from grace, was sent out on loan to FC Utrecht. But, really did impress when he was over in the Eredivisie. Did very well for Utrecht. I think he scored 11 goals in 20 appearances. I think got 17 or 18 goal contributions in that time as well. Looked a much more talented player than, than the one that we signed. But, there was talk, wasn't there, of him staying at Utrecht. That looks to have fallen through now with the fact that Utrecht have said they can't afford his wages. Which, considering that Rangers agreed to pay him £22,000 a week until 2027 is, extremely foolish on Rangers' part, and, will price certain teams out of a deal for him, if he is looking to, get somewhere near the wages that Rangers were paying him. And, let's face it, we're all going to look for similar wages, or if not slightly more. None of us really ever look for a wage cut when we're moving jobs, do we? And I think, it's the same for footballers. Alkmaar were talked about as well. RZ Alkmaar were reportedly interested in Lammers, but that has now died as well with the signing of Troy Parrott from Spurs. So that's another one that has gone by the wayside. Feyenoord also have distanced themselves. So, Rangers at the moment really do seem to be stuck with a player they don't see as having a future with the club. And they've kind of shown that, in their estimations, this is a man that doesn't have a future at the club. How? Because they didn't take him to Holland for the pre-season tour. They didn't take him, to be part of that squad bonding experience, part of that squad building experience out there. He was left at home with the B team, training with the reserves, in effect. Something you do often with players that you don't want, the players that you want to push out of the door. Now, Lammers today played 45 minutes for Rangers B team, along with 4 other first-team names in a bounce game against Leeds United at Auchenhowie, a game that Rangers actually lost 1-0. Not repeating, obviously, the feats of the Battle of Britain. Despite all the circulation of the rumours around Lammers, we've got to obviously keep him fit. We've got to keep playing him in B-team games to some extent. We've got to keep him match fit because, that will make him a more attractive option for someone to sign, and stop teams from coming in and lowballing us. I think the problem we've got at the moment is that teams know that we don't want Lammers anymore. Teams know that we're willing to sell Sam Lammers. And because of that, they're going to go and say, well, look, let's give you $2 million for him. Let's give you $2.5 million for him. They're not going to give the market value, are they? Because let's face it, why would you when someone is desperate to sell something or get rid of something? Sam Lammers, obviously, like I said, turned out for the B team today. Didn't score, actually missed a couple of decent chances. Again, typical Sam Lammers, wearing a Rangers shirt. Along with Sam Lammers, Robbie Fraser, Bailey Rice and Leon King all featured for the B team. Sam Lammers only lasted 45 minutes and was hooked along with Rice and Christian Webster. He had 2 efforts during the first half. The first was held by Leeds Scottish goalkeeper Rory Mahady, and the second was drifted harmlessly over. Look, I don't think that it was performance-based. It was probably managing his minutes, keeping him fit, obviously not risking him get injured. That's probably the reasons why I think he was hooked after 45. Now, obviously, given the fact that he does not have a future at Rangers, it is kind of concerning, isn't it, that there is little else for him out there at this moment in time. There is no real links. There's no real clubs coming in. And it is a worry that we're going to be stuck with him come the start of the season, stuck paying £22,000 a week to a player we don't really want. I think on the positive note, it was encouraging to see obviously Bailey Rice get some minutes and, see obviously him coming back from being injured at the end of last season. Encouraging for Robbie Fraser to get some minutes. I certainly hope that both Robbie and Bailey will have a part to play in the first team this season. I think, especially given our financial woes at this moment in time, some of these young, talented players, I think, will have to step up to the plate and will have more of an increased role to play this season. And we all know that Bailey is a quality player. We know that he's often been described as one of the most promising players coming through the academy. So you've got to kind of hope that Big Phil will see that and give Bailey his opportunity to impress this coming season. Okay, final point this morning. Now, look, Glen Kamara, we kind of all were saying, well, he's gone now. He was part of 55 and he was excellent during 55, absolutely fantastic during 55. He was one of the best players we had. He was superb during the Europa League run as well. Who can forget that goal he scored against Leipzig in the semi-final? Obviously, taking off his armband as well and dedicating his goal to the late, great Jimmy Bell. Now, look, Kamara moved to Leeds last summer. And as part of that Leeds contract, it was agreed that there would be a sell-on fee of about 10% for Rangers if Leeds did sell Kamara. There was also a promotion bonus as well if Leeds were promoted to the Premier League. Obviously, they lost the playoff final to Southampton, were not promoted, and have now conducted a massive fire sale of all their best players. So Kamara is one of those players that's joined the likes of Archie Gray on the way out of the club. Now, he has moved to France to play for Rennes, which I think, was Rennes, Nice, French clubs were linked with him, weren't they, when he was at Rangers, and again, were willing to pay about £9-10 million for him. It appears now that the fee was somewhere around £8.6 million to secure the services of Glen Kamara. Now, it's thought that this secures Rangers £860,000 in a windfall as part of that sell-on fee from the Leeds United transfer fee. So, good news that we raised a little bit of money, 860,000, probably not going to buy us any players, but certainly, money to add into the kitty should we be able to, move on some other players ourselves and actually get the lion's share of any transfer fee. So, good news. Thank you, Glenn, for that. Thanks for the windfall, Glenn. Still helping out your former club, even though you are not here anymore. Well, guys, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. As always, please obviously smash that sub on the way out. 2 things I always ask you, though. Number 1, smash that like. Number 2, remember always, we are the people.